Well, Casey, we've got a doozy of a story this week and an interview with a real live member of Gen Z.
Yeah, and we are excited to talk to this one. This is a controversial story, Kevin, but one that we think that tells us a lot about the state of the world.
So today we are talking with Roy Lee. He is a sophomore at Columbia University.
For now,
for at least the next couple of days. And he has gotten a lot of attention in recent days for something that he's been doing to apply for jobs in the tech industry.
What has he been doing, Kevin?
So Roy has developed a tool called Interview Coder that basically uses AI to help job applicants to big tech companies cheat on their interviews.
Yeah.
So in a lot of tech interviews, they do these things called LeetCode problems, where basically the recruiter or the person who's supervising the interview from the tech company will watch you kind of solve a tricky computer science problem, and they'll do this remotely. And so Roy had this idea, well, these AI systems are getting quite good at solving these kind of problems. What if you could just kind of like have the AI running in the background telling you how to solve the problem, and you could kind of make that undetectable to the company?
Yeah, and to prove that this worked, Roy applied for jobs at several big companies, including Amazon, and he says wound up getting offers from all of them after using this tool. And after he began promoting this story online, well, that's when all hell broke loose.
Yeah, so he has become sort of a villain to a lot of tech employers and people doing these kinds of interviews, but he's become a hero to a bunch of younger programmers who think that these practices, these hiring tests, these puzzles that you give people when they're looking for jobs are outdated, and that they need to be sort of exposed as being bad and wrong, and that we need to come up with something better to replace them.
Yeah, and Kevin, I am sure that some listeners are going to hear this segment and they are going to email us and they are going to say, shame on you. Why are you giving this guy a platform? We shouldn't be rewarding people for cheating. But I have to tell you, as we sat with it, we thought this is a story that tells us a lot about the present moment. The nature of software engineering is changing. The nature of hiring is changing. What should employers be looking for and how should they test for it? These questions are getting a lot more complicated as AI improves. And Roy's story, I think, illustrates how quickly things are changing in a way that is just honestly worth hearing more about. Let's bring in Roy Lee and ask him all about it.
Roy Lee, welcome to Hard Fork.
Hey, excited to be here.
So where are we finding you today? It looks like you're in a dorm of some kind.
Yeah, I'm still in my Columbia University dorm at the moment.
Possibly for not too much longer, is that right?
Yeah, I'm waiting on a decision to hear if I'm kicked out of school or not, so this might be my last few days.
And what's the over-under on whether you get kicked out or not? From the facts of the case, I would say it's not looking good for you.
Yeah, it is not looking too good for me, but strangely enough, I've had some pretty powerful people message me and say, hey, if they try to do anything, then just let us know. So but both worlds are in the realm of reality.
Wow. So I want to get to all the disciplinary drama, but I want to actually take us back in time to when this all started for you. When did you get the idea for this tool, Interview Coder, and what problem were you trying to solve?
Yeah, so I don't know how familiar you guys are with like software engineering, but for about 2 decades now, there's a technical sort of interview that happens that's called a LeetCode style interview. And it's essentially an interview where they'll ask you a riddle, and these types of riddles sort of problems are found on a website, LeetCode.com. And you're given 45 minutes, and the task here is to sort of have seen the problem before, solve the problem, and be able to regurgitate the memorized solution without acting like you haven't seen the problem before. So it's pretty much a really ridiculous system and type of interview, and every single software engineer out there sort of knows it. And everyone, if you want a job that pays a reasonable salary, then you're kind of forced to go through this gauntlet of spending a couple hundred hours on this website, memorizing a bunch of riddles, and that's just like a gigantic negative for society. I myself went through the gauntlet. I grinded the website for probably up until I was in the top 1% of competitive ranked users on the website. So it was just a gigantic waste of time. I spent 600 hours of my life memorizing riddles when in reality I should have been programming. And as soon as I kind of developed the balls to kind of do something, I just realized, hey, there's something that can be done here. This is a very easy solution. This type of interview is already being gained by tools like this that exist. Just take someone to kind of like make it really public, make a scene out of it, and show big tech, hey, you guys need to fix it because it's just not working.
So you say you spent hundreds of hours on this website solving these riddles. I'm curious if you feel like it made you better at coding? Like my guess would be is like if you're truly in like, the top, 1% of people who are using this website to solve problems, it would have made you pretty good at being a software engineer.
There might have been utility in maybe solving the first 20 questions. Maybe like the first 10 hours on the website might have had some utility, but after that, it doesn't really help you at all. The types of problems and the type of thinking that you're expected to perform on while doing these questions, it's just you're never ever going to use it in a job.
All right, so you get very frustrated with LeetCodes. You start thinking about what you want to do next, and tell us the moment that you decided to become the Joker.
Yeah, so during the recruiting process, my interest in entrepreneurship was growing, and at a certain point, it kind of got to a point where I realized, like, hey, no matter what, I'm only going to end up at a startup, and I kind of have the balls to cut off all these bridges now with big tech companies. And as soon as I developed that mindset, I realized that, hey, doing this thing is not actually going to ruin my future as much as I think it will. And in that case, it just becomes a super viral thing that we know will go viral.
So tell us about the thing. Tell us about the tool that you built and how it works.
Yeah, so really core level, it's a desktop application that sits, it overlays on top of all of your other applications and is completely invisible to screen share. The technology is actually very, very simple. You just take a screenshot of the screen and ask ChatGPT, hey, can you solve the question you see on the screen? And it spits out the response. But what we've really done, like technically, is make it undetectable to the interviewer. There's a translucent overlay, so it doesn't look like your eyes are moving or you're looking at another screen at all. There's a movable window you can overlay directly on top of your code. The cursor doesn't lose focus. And there's just a lot of bells and whistles we've used to make it completely undetectable that you're actually using something at all.
So let me get a sense of how this actually works in practice. So during an interview for a programming job, you would be given a LeetCode problem to solve, and then you would be on a video call with someone, a recruiter from the company who's watching you solve the problem. Is that how these work?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And so you developed a tool to essentially allow you to have AI solve this problem for you while not tipping off the person on the other end of the video call that you're using AI.
Yeah. That's how it works.
And am I right that you used a prototype of this when you were going through your own interview process with Amazon?
Yeah. It wasn't just Amazon. I spent the entire recruiting season figuring out how to make a perfectly undetectable application. I trial ran it with companies like Meta, Capital One, TikTok, and the belle of the ball was Amazon. That was sort of the most well-known thing with the most annoying recruiting process. And I just knew that if I recorded the entire process, then this would blow up.
And how did your tool do?
Yeah, I mean, it completely one-shot it. Like, we live in an age where AI exists, programmers are going to use AI, and AI is extremely good at these sorts of riddle type problems.
Can I just ask about what is your emotional experience of this time? You are walking into like several lions' dens. You're essentially misrepresenting yourself as an earnest job candidate. Your whole role is essentially to like gather content that can then be used to like repurpose to promote your startup. What, like, were you nervous during this time? What were you feeling as you were going through these interviews?
Yeah, you have no idea. There was a point in time where I was getting flooded with disciplinary messages from Columbia, and I just thought, like, I just completely burned my career and my future education for 20,000 YouTube views. Was this really all worth it? And I was in this mental state for about a week until it kind of blew up. And at that point, the virality kind of was my protection for everything.
And just help me understand here, like, what Columbia's role in this is. So obviously what you're doing in sort of cheating on these job interviews for Amazon and Meta and TikTok and these other companies is against those companies' wishes and their policies. But why did it become Columbia's business?
Yeah, I actually have no idea. I read the student handbook quite thoroughly before I actually started building this thing because I was ready to burn bridges with Amazon, but I didn't actually expect to get expelled at all. And the student handbook very explicitly doesn't mention anything about academic resources. There's no mention of LeetCode or job interviews anywhere outside of there. I have no idea why this became Columbia's business.
And we should say we reached out to both Columbia and Amazon about this, and they both declined to comment.
So how long has your tool been out in the market for other cheaters to use?
It's been out since February 1st, so just a little under 50 days now.
And what can you tell us about how many people are using and what kind of outcomes they're seeing?
Yeah, there's been a few thousand users now and not a single reported instance of the tool getting caught. There's been many grateful emails of people having used the tool to get job offers. It's doing very well.
So, like, you, Roy, are a capable coder, right? You are in the top 1% of LeetCode solvers. You presumably could have gotten some of these jobs without AI assistance, but some of the people using this tool may not be talented programmers. They may be using this to kind of skate through these interviews that they shouldn't be passing and wouldn't pass without AI assistance. And I'm just imagining those people like showing up on, for day one of their internship or their job at Amazon or another big tech company and just having no idea what they're doing and being totally useless without AI assistance. Is that something that worries you about putting this kind of tool out into the world?
Not at all. I think LeetCode interviews are about as correlative as how many jumping jacks can you do being the benchmark for how good of a New York Times podcaster you are. It just really has nothing to do with the job. If like perhaps it is correlative that someone is willing to put in the work because they really want to be a New York Times tech podcaster, but in reality they just have nothing to do with each other.
What in your mind would be a fair test of somebody's software engineering skills that could be used as part of an assessment?
Yeah, I think there's assessments out there that sort of give you access to all the tools that you would have on the regular day-to-day job, which includes tools like AI code editors. And if you ask someone a pretty fairly open-ended assignment with an AI code editor and sort of just like gauge them on how well they did there, then that's like a much more it's a standardizable assessment that that allows you to use the tools that are at your disposal.
Interesting. So essentially just say like, look, use whatever tool you want, just get this thing done in a reasonable amount of time. That's the test you want to see these companies offering.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have at any point during this process any misgivings or ethical concerns about what you were doing?
No, I mean, I was very intentional from the start that I was not going to intern at any of these companies. And frankly, like I don't really care if there's people that are cheating their way to get these jobs. I mean, like, again, if bring back the jumping jack example, like if you were just told to do as many jumping jacks as you could and the winner gets a position, like I wouldn't really care if someone's cheating their way through a bunch of jumping jacks.
What does your family think about what you're doing?
Yeah, so my mom actually only figured out about a week ago, and I didn't tell her before then because I knew she would disapprove. But yeah. I've always been a pretty rambunctious kid who's been pretty self-minded and sort of does what he wants. I think they're a lot happier now that they know how much money I'm making. So
good, okay.
And how much money are you making?
Yeah, we're on track to do about we're closing in on $200,000 this month. So we're on track to do about like 2-3 million in a year.
Wow, that would almost buy you 1 year of education at Columbia University. So that's pretty good. I think your tool is arriving at this really interesting time, Roy. You know, Kevin and I have been talking in recent weeks about the phenomenon of vibe coding. People like me and Kevin who have no technical skills whatsoever, but we can sit down with something like Claude and say, hey, write me an app. Kevin has actually had some success with this. I've made some really bad video games like using this thing, right? I do not consider myself a software engineer, but at the same time, what you are having job candidates do with your tool and what we are doing as vibe coders is not really that different, right? We're just typing some text into a box and getting some sort of output. And so I'm wondering, are we just at an inflection point where the line between software engineer and vibe coder is kind of dissolving?
That's certainly the future that we're headed to, but I think we're a few years away. In my opinion, what AI really has the potential to do is make someone about 10 to 100 times more efficient at what they're able to do. And if you're a really good coder, then you're able to code really good things really a lot faster. But if you're not that good in the first place, then there's still going to be a huge difference between what a staff software engineer at Google is capable of and what you are.
This does feel like a classic anxiety dream where you show up on your first day as a software engineer at Google, but you realize that you actually only know how to vibe code, and now you just sort of have to fake it for your entire career. But presumably some people who use your tool, Roy, are having this experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what 50% of people at Google are doing anyway, so it wouldn't be the first time.
Right. I'm curious if you think there's sort of a generational misunderstanding here. Obviously, you are young. You're 21, correct?
Yeah.
Give us a sense of how your peers, college students, young programmers are using AI and what older people who've been doing this for 10 or 20 years, people who are working at these big companies may not understand about how your generation sees coding.
Yeah, I think this is actually, it's actually interesting that you asked me this question because I think this is something that nobody's really caught on to yet. But the proportion of people who are almost solely using AI to code is almost I would say it's close to 100%, even at a school like Columbia. The best CS students of our nation are almost not writing original code at all. And the only people that are the people who have started coding from a really young age. It could end up being dangerous because I really do think that a fundamental understanding of how these things work is important. But at the same time, the models are only getting better, and we could just lean towards the future where software engineering is just completely obsolete. But I'd also say I'm a second year at Columbia, so there might be better people to ask.
Nope, you're the best. So I'm curious how much of your critique of the way tech companies are hiring software engineers also applies to just the education system that you've gone through and how it wants you to use AI. What sort of resistance have you encountered in your educational career to using these sort of tools? And have you been flouting those the same way you've been flouting the tech companies?
Yeah, I'm not as avid a cheater in school as I am in the tech interviews, but I do think that there's going to be a very fundamental reframing in how we do almost every bit of knowledge work in the future. Essays, writing is not going to be written the same. Tests are not going to be conducted the same. Memorization will not need to be happen. We're headed towards a future where almost all of our cognitive load is offshore to LLMs, and I think people need to get with the program. Yeah.
Who are some of the people who have reached out since your story went viral?
God, I don't want to name any names, but I will say that I've verbally received job offers from pretty much every single big tech company, including almost all the ones that rescinded my offer initially. Just people who are like high up saying, hey, I know you're probably not interested, but I would hire you on my team in a second.
Wow. And they're not even going to make you interview, probably because they know you would cheat, but still. So, I mean, look, Roy, I got to put my cards on the table. I'm more of a rule follower. Like, I didn't cheat in school. I don't love the idea of people, cheating their way through every job interview. Kevin is much more permissive about these sort of things. But there is this one way in which I am sympathetic to what you're doing, which is that tech companies are saying, don't use AI assistants when you are applying. But at the same time, they are hiring you to build AI systems that will automate coding and replace human developers. And it does feel to me like there is some sort of contradiction there. It's right. No, you don't use the AI. Prove that you can do it with your own mind, and then come here and then build a tool that will replace yourself completely.
Yeah.
Like, that feels strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, even more so, like, feel completely free to use the tool in the job, but just don't use it in the interview.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more of a disconnect for me.
Yeah. I mean, to me, what makes your story so interesting, Roy, is that I don't think this is limited to programming jobs, right? There is a version of LeetCode that happens in the interview process during lots of different kinds of interviews for lots of different types of jobs. Consultants have their own version of this where they do case tests, and there are various tests that are given to people applying for jobs in finance that they
Journalists have editing tests where we were given, like copy that we would have to like fix the mistakes in. I imagine we're not doing that anymore.
Totally. And to me, it just seems like this is a very early example of something that every industry is going to have to face very soon, which is that it is just becoming very, very difficult to evaluate who is good at a job without the assistance of AI, especially if you're trying to do that remotely.
Yeah, certainly.
Well, you've made a bunch of recruiters and hiring managers in Silicon Valley very unhappy, but I think that you are proving something that a lot of companies, including tech companies, will need to address very soon if they haven't already.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right. Thanks, Roy.
Thanks, Roy.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Hey, that's the end of this clip. If you liked what you saw, head on over to our page and subscribe, and you can get the full podcast. We do a show like this almost every week on tech and the future. Head on over there now and subscribe.